A nice benefit of being one of the only data people at your company is that you pretty much have free reign over how you manage the database. And this is both a gift and a curse because what I find a lot of teams do is strictly use an admin user for pretty much all of their workflows. And what I'm here to tell you today is that that might not be the best strategy, even if you're a small team and it feels like it's just easy to get away with. So in this video, I want to explain why you might want to pay attention a little bit closer to database roles and some benefits you're going to get by doing so. Now, before we get too far, I want to level set on what I mean when I'm talking about a database role. When you have a database set up, you have roles and you have users. The role is typically the database object that holds permissions. So what you can read, what you can write, what you can delete, all these different things. And then you have individual users that get assigned to the role, and therefore they inherit all of the permissions that you were set. And there are typically four main roles, at least at a foundational level, that I recommend you start with instead of that admin role. Number one is the loader. The loader role is what's focused on data ingestion. It has permissions to create new tables and schemas and update those, but typically you don't want to give it too much access to anything else downstream. So the development tables, the marts tables, all that stuff. There's no reason for it to have it. Then on the other end of the pipeline, you would have an analyst role. The analyst role is what your typical business stakeholders will have, or it could be the data visualization tool that's connecting to your database. And you'll typically only limit that to read from the last tables of your pipeline. So your data marts. Again, there's no reason for it to be able to create other tables or read raw data if you're just connecting it to a data visualization tool. And then in the middle there, you have a developer role, which is for developers to create test tables, to be able to at least read production tables, but they may not have the ability to create or update production tables. And then the last role would be what I call automation. And that's typically because I like to see the production tables managed, created, and all that by some sort of automation. And I'll talk about why that is in a bit. So again, at a high level, those are the four roles. You can tweak those how you like, but simply by establishing those roles, you're already in a better position than having everything tied to some sort of admin user or admin role. Let's now talk about the benefits of introducing these roles. Why go through the trouble of it? Number one, at the base level, it's good for data security. In most cases, you don't want all these different tools or different users to see everything. And if you're just using an admin role or some kind of generic thing, you're not really doing anything to limit that. For example, it might be easy to have your admin user tied into your data ingestion tool, but by doing that, you're unnecessarily exposing your entire database with an admin user to a third-party tool. And while they're likely very reliable and secure tools in themselves, there's just no need to open yourself up to that kind of risk. Instead, if you just take the time to create the role, add the permissions, really it's a one-time thing that you could slightly tweak as you need, and then add a user. Now that user is limited. It can only see what it's created or what you're allowing it to, and there'll be no risk of it accidentally interfering or reading data in another part of your database. This is something that I know sounds obvious when I explain it, but when teams get started, especially when you're a one-person team or you're a small team, it's just easier to get going with that admin user just to start it, but then you never go back and change it. And so 3, 4, 5 years later, you realize you're still running these pipelines with admin users all over the place. And so hopefully this is just a reminder to take a look at that. And you probably don't want to do that. And so hopefully these are giving you some ideas around that. The second note here is avoiding accidental mistakes. I find this is most true in the development process. So I mentioned earlier splitting up the developer role with the automation role. And you might be thinking, well, why don't I just let the developers have production access? Why can't they just deploy and build and do all the stuff for production in addition to their testing? And the reason is human errors, accidents. When you have these roles in place, you can explicitly say developers have the ability to read from production tables and production things, but they don't have the ability to do anything else. And by doing it that way, you're adding just a little bit of friction to what is going to happen in production. And even if you're the only person on the team and this feels like overkill, I still think you should plan and build as if you are a bigger team or you're going to have somebody else join at some point. It's good practice. It just keeps you structured and it gives you a strategy in place. I can't tell you how many times I've seen developers locally developing and realizing, oh, I missed something in production. And so they'll go and just deploy to production real quick on their own local environment. And a lot of times you can get away with it and it may not break something. And I'm sorry if I'm calling you out here if you feel targeted, and I've been guilty of it as well. But the idea is to avoid that as much as you can, because it may work 9 out of 10 times, but that 1 out of 10 time that you drop something by accident, or now you've changed something downstream that you didn't realize, and now your stakeholders are up in arms about something, it happens and it just becomes not worth it. And hopefully, again, this is just a reminder to really focus on that and introduce that, because it's going to help put a little friction in the way of that accidentally happening. And the last note I have on this is that it helps you stay organized. If you have just, again, one generic user, then you really don't have any sort of structure or organization around your database management. For example, what do you do when somebody new joins the team? team? What roles are you giving them? Or are you just kind of making it up on the fly? And I know this isn't the end of the world and you can get around it, but I'm trying to give you some better practices and tell you that there is a better way. So if you have these different roles and you have them clearly named, you're allowing yourself to be more organized. And the names of this are intentional so that it's clear on exactly what they do. For example, the loader role pretty clearly is for loading data. Developer is for developers. Automation is handling the automated workflows. And then analyst is for business analysts or data analysts, people who are reading the data that you're outputting. And of course, you can always tweak these names and make them your own. These are just good foundational ones that I recommend if you don't have something in place today. So staying organized to me is a huge component. It saves you time, it saves you mental bandwidth, and it allows you to scale more because you have a strategy. You know exactly what you're doing, and it all works together with your data design as well, which is a big part of this. It's not just your database roles. It's not just your data modeling, your ingestion. It's all of these things together. You're creating a system. But I also recognize it can be tough at times, especially when you're on a small team or you're the only one. You're pretty overwhelmed as it is. So if you'd like some help thinking through that, or you just want a second set of eyes to go through and work with you on some of these things, this is something I offer and I work with teams on. So I would love to help you too. I'll leave some information below if that's something you're interested in. But either way, thanks as always for watching, and I'll see you at the next video.